Hello, I'm here to try and help some people out, and I know Orb.Farm is really confusing for a lot of people, so I'm just gonna help you out and show you what some tips and tricks and what a good habitat looks like. So first off, Orb.Farm, you have to balance the CO2 and O2, air and CO2. When you think about this, you breathe in air and you release CO2, right? So you have to balance these two things in this orb of a life form that you're going to create. So let's start with some sand. Actually, no, let's start with glass. Ready? So let me show you how to divide this, because I enjoy dividing it, because if you think about food chains, also fish are going to eat the daphnias, and then the fish are going to take out the entire aquarium if you don't divide it. So what we're going to do is go like this. It's going to come around like that and then go back straight like that. And there we go. That's not the best aquarium I've ever made. And now I'm going to go from right here to about here. Now you have a different sectioned off tank. Different little sectioned off parts, and then like this. So this is going to be for one or two daphnias to hatch. This is going to be for 2 fish to live. This is going to be for like mass daphnia. This is going to be for a mass fish. So that we have different experimentation places, if you will. So let's start with our sand. Let's just layer some sand into the bottom of all our aquariums. Here we go. I call them aquariums. They're not aquariums, but I'm gonna call them that, and I'm never gonna stop because it's me for you. Anyway, so now we're just putting sand into our aquariums. So you put a little too much sand right there. You can use the clear button to get rid of stuff. For whatever reason, they added a clear button. I don't know who thought of that. It's kind of genius, but also kind of unhelpful sometimes, because you can clear stuff, but like it clears everything else also. Anyway, so now let's start with the daphnia hatching zone so that we have the most space, and let's add some grass. Now we're gonna make a little wood table, if you can picture it like that. And then going like this, just as a little design. I think it's cute. You don't have to do that. It holds up on its own. Now let's put water in. There we go. Water is in. Now we're gonna put some algae along the walls. Remember, you put algae along the walls. It always works better. I forgot to put some there. Now we're going to add 1 daphnia egg over here, 1 daphnia egg over here. Remember, when you're putting them into your single hatching zone, you don't have to do a single hatching zone. I like to experiment like that. Then for bacteria, if you put too much, they'll die off. So what you're going to do is just go like this, nice and slow, so that everything gets covered. And when daphnias start to lay new eggs, the bacteria is also gonna help having some extra, and you're gonna have to relayer it too. So now let's move on. For fish, I always recommend putting grass everywhere along the ground, because fish poop, which is gross. Daphnias don't. Fish poop, and their poop gets stuck up everywhere. And when this happens, it can kill the fish because they eat algae, but they also eat grass. Yeah, so for some reason I'm stuttering. Anyway, I recommend putting 1 goldfish and 1 normal fish. I have those 2 in there right now. So then we're done. We're done right there. Okay, now let's start working on our large daphnia tank. So for this, you don't need to put grass everywhere for daphnias. They don't actually eat grass. I just think it looks good to have some grass. Then I'm gonna do a bigger wooden bridge to help, just to keep the eggs on so we can see where they are. If you just leave them on the ground, I find that it's a little hard to see them. You do you though. This isn't a you have to follow for the game to work type of tutorial. Anyway, there we go. Now let's put down some daphnia eggs and some bacteria. The more daphnia eggs you have, the more bacteria you need. Right, so there we go. Now our daphnia egg. Now you have to quickly put down water before they die off. Put some water over them. While they're unhatched, they don't need the algae. I would just put it down. I would just put it in so that you don't have to later, because algae doesn't really die off that quickly enough. That quickly, I guess. So now let's grab some algae. I have a touchscreen computer, so I like to use my finger for this part, but if you don't, it still works. It's just easier to get the algae in like a nice place, because holding down with your finger honestly just hurts me. Anyway, now let's move on to our big fish container. This, layering the grass, you can use your finger for grass if you have a touchscreen computer, but you're going to put a lot of grass because there are going to be a lot of fish. They're going to make a lot of poop. So now, water. Always put in water before fish. I can show you what happens later. I can show you what happens if you put in a fish with no water. It's not great. It just kind of like turns into a little like egg, and then you put more water in and it goes back. Let's fill this in. Okay, there we go. The water's spilling out. Is it spilling out, or did I just... okay, good. You have to make sure that the water's not just spilling. Like, if I put water here, like, it's just going to spill out the side, right? But you also have to make sure that water isn't coming out. It's just spilling. Like, because if I make a hole right there, all the water would start coming out, and that wouldn't be good. So now, let's put our algae in. You don't... Like I said, you don't need algae before... You don't need algae before, you don't need it before the fish are on, before you put the fish in. I just find it good to get in the habit of putting it in before, so you don't have to remember. I would recommend starting with 4 goldfish and 4 regular fish, because as gross as this is, they are going to reproduce. Yeah, so... Now we have our habitat, and oh, my fish died off in here. Okay, let's add some more fish here. Goldfish, go in there. Fish. There we go, 2 fish in there, and then click the speed up button. Now you can see when your eggs start to turn pink or blue, boy or girl, mostly girls, then they're starting to be able to hatch, and there we go. When they hatch, they're going to look like this. They start to become little life forms with things on them. They don't live very long though. They just go out, spin around a bit with their blue tails, and then they start to turn like as... Have you ever heard the phrase "shrivel up and grow old"? Yeah, like that. They get smaller and start to reproduce eggs, and then they're just reproducing everywhere. This is my sign to put more bacteria down, and there you go. So, if you have any questions, I'll have like a questionnaire at some point with questions I've gotten. There you go. Also, thank you for 7 subscribers. Thank you so much. Okay, goodbye.